Hello everyone, we have a game with the black pieces against City Trooper, rated 765. He opens up with d4, so we know caro-kann. But we bring the knight out, we remain flexible. We're attacking the center, preventing him from playing e4. But he doesn't care about the center. He's creating this pawn chain. Okay. Well, since he really wants this pawn chain so badly, I'm going to attack the center with development for my queen, and he's going to take the pawn. This releases control over the e5 square and the center. Okay. You can develop your knight. You could push your pawn 1. You could push your pawn 2. I'm going to push the pawn 1 for the time being. Attack this pawn. Threaten to play d5 afterward with a nice center. He brings his bishop out, which pins the knight, but doesn't threaten anything. And I'm simply going to take my pawn back with a developing move. Material's even, and he has no central pawn here. We still have 2 pawns in the center, and we're going to put one on d5. So he plays e3, blunting our bishop and developing his light square bishop. We're going to put that pawn in the center on d5, controlling the light squares. He develops a knight, controlling some dark squares in the center. And now we're going to develop our knight to its most natural square, covering the dark squares in the center. These knights counter each other. So he goes for this pin on this knight. Maybe he wants to add pressure with the other knight. But that only exists if there's a pin. So I'm going to castle and remove the pin. That way this move is impossible because the knight hangs. He develops his other knight to the edge of the board, allowing us the possibility of doubling and isolating some pawns, which in this case I think is strong. And I say that because after I take, if he takes, queen a5 hits the bishop and both pawns. So, concretely speaking, I don't mind giving up this bishop because I think I have a good follow-up, which is queen a5, hitting weaknesses and lose pieces. I do understand he can take this knight, I also couldn't care less. This is not an attack. Also, I mean, he has pressing matters. So he defends the bishop instead of maybe, let's say, taking the knight. But this doesn't address the 2 hanging pawns, especially this one, which comes with check and should therefore have been a big consideration. So he retreats the knight, which undefends the center and pins itself to boot. So this is a very bad move, and we can take advantage of this move by jumping our knight into the center, hitting the pinned piece and a loose piece while removing it from the doubled pawns, idea. So let's do that. It's an improving move for free that I just mentioned does like 3 things at once. And our position, our structure is perfect, and our pieces look extremely harmonious. We get some rooks to the c file, but the game might end before that. So he moves his rook away from the bishop and attacks the queen and the knight behind it. Not a bad idea, but at the end of this all, his bishop is still hanging, right? Kind of important. Also, his pawn is hanging. Also, you could re-attack the bishop, but he'll just give it up for the knight and try to win a pawn. He's doing all this to try to win a pawn probably, but It's definitely not worth it. So anyway, I'm going to go queen a5. Not to attack the bishop, but to keep the pin so he can't take my knight and trade, because I want to be hitting his bishop. If you go and take the pawn, you lose the pin, and then you lose the attack on the bishop. So I'm maintaining the pin so he has to deal with the bishop and can't just take my stuff. Okay, so he completely doesn't see the threat at hand, and he's focused on this hanging pawn. And he also protects the bishop, so he's doing a 2-in-1 defense on that side, but completely forgetting about the piece on this side. So we're definitely going to take a free piece. And now we'll just move our knight back to its best position with a maximum pressure. Unless, of course, he castles, then maybe we won't do that. So he does castle. You could still do this even though you're going to trade. It's not a bad thing. But I'm not going to move it until I'm provoked. Instead, I'm going to finish my development by getting my bishop out of the way and putting a rook on the c file and continue playing. Trying to build the harmony in my position. I need to get all of my pieces to where they're happiest. And my rooks will be happier on the c file than where they are currently. My queen has a beautiful diagonal and lots of pressure, especially with a6 coming at some point. This knight will reroute or get traded. Okay, so he moves to the normal square f3, which offers the trade, but now I'm definitely going to jump into the center and deny the trade and say my knight's beautiful here and you can't even kick it with a pawn. So I like this move. He might want to jump in here, but that actually hangs a piece because I take the knight and then the bishop backwards. So if he wants to put his knight here, he should take our knight first. Otherwise, I mean, what moves does white have? He can't do anything with this rook. He has to move his queen, his rook, or a random pawn move. So let's see which one he picks. He picks the bishop. That wasn't one of the choices, guy. He wasn't even paying attention. He wants to take it so that when I take back, he can take this. But then I could even take this, so it doesn't even work. I'm going to spend a turn going f5, creating this stonewall-like structure on a power outpost on e4, so that if he does take, I'm going to recapture the f-pawn, kicking his king's defender and opening my rook's f-file. So he doesn't dare take my knight. And I'm increasing the development of my rook. So 2-in-1. We like that. And now I have full map control. I'm dominating the center, I'm dominating the queen side, and I will be dominating the king side. I guess my f-pawn gives me better domination on the king side, and sure, when you create this structure, you have this hole here on e5, and this hole on e6, two weak squares, but he can't use this hole on e5 because I'll just take his knight, and e6 he can't get to because you can't put a rook here with your own pawn in the way and a knight in the way. So not real weaknesses. So he moves his rook with some counterplay. We immediately notice the fork. He would have to move his queen and then you could take the exchange. Do we want to give up this knight for a rook? I mean, it is a strong knight, but at the end of the day, we should take the rook. So let's do that. And it's important that our queen's defended, or he would have weird moves like, you know, pinning. But since our queen's defended, that's not a thing. His queen's hit, he cannot counter hit us. I mean, he can, but that also wins the exchange, which is what we're going to win anyway. So this works out in our favor. You guys should be afraid to play a move like f5, but you should not be afraid to consider it. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but what I'm trying to say is you should be careful when you play it, but that doesn't mean don't play it ever. You know, just like, oh, I'm never doing this because it's so weakening, and I don't know. Like, no, sometimes it's good and do it. So he moves his queen. We could take the rook. Let's just take the rook. He takes with the queen, which threatens our pawn, which we don't care about. I think I'm going to abandon this central thing and give it to him. Or maybe. You know, we're up so much material, I changed my mind. Let's just put our queen here instead of our knight. Get in his way. We don't need to take other stuff. We're up 6 points of material. I mean, this guy's toast. Let's just trade everything. Okay, so he goes for it, which of course can't be good. Maybe he's going to try to... I mean, this doesn't work because stuff's hanging, but... So his bishop's hanging, which is a nice coincidence. So he moves the bishop, which means his rook can never go there. So let's get our rook in the game, create some pressure down the c-file so he cannot put his rook there. We're preventing our opponent's development. This is how the computer likes to play. It says nope, and you're like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna do this. It's like nope, nope, denied. 95. I said I was gonna give it to him because who cares? And now this knight will do absolutely nothing from that square. It's just gonna sit there all game doing nothing. And we're gonna pressure the queen side. We're gonna double our rooks. Okay, he's hopping around with his knight, but that just hangs it. As I mentioned, that knight should sit there and do nothing. Like some lazy guy, just relaxing. Like me. G3. This does absolutely nothing, has no bearing on the game. So let's double our rooks. Let's pick a dark square, so his light square bishop is useless. You simply double the rooks, you get your light square bishop out. Easy days. You're up 10 points of material, and there's no way to possibly lose in this position. Okay, we ignore what he does, and we continue our improvement because this does not create a threat. And to simplify further, we can easily just throw a rook here. We ignore what he does, even though there's a pawn hanging. We don't take it. We don't care. He cannot take our rook without also losing the bishop. Otherwise, he loses the rook, so he loses the whole house no matter what. And that's why we don't take his pawn, because who cares about the pawn? Now we take it. You don't need to take it. Okay, so let's try to promote. I'm just going to ignore his pawns. I took the last one as a joke. Let's just promote to a queen. I don't know why he's chasing the pawn, like he can do something with it. Let's throw the queen here, supported this. He has to go here. And then, I mean, you can do things like this, but it might be wiser to cut off the king with the rook first. There's also this check, but again, let's cut it off so he has no escape routes, and let's hit him with the boom. No, he has this square. Wait, wait. Let's go back. Here, here. And he's gonna go here. Wait, where's the check? Wait. This one. Alright, that's one of them. There's gotta be so many. But we'll take that one. Let's go through the game. He plays this weird passive setup, which you shouldn't do. And we immediately strike in the center like you're supposed to. He takes because it looks like a free pawn. And I would already rather be black. And with a 96% game, so would the engine. So we play e6 to try to take this pawn back. Maybe he could try something like b4, saying, hey, I'm going to keep it. But even if he could keep it, I still would want black, but who says he can keep it? You know? Maybe we can attack it. But are we even threatening anything? Because if he just goes here and you take, well, then you just break it down and say everything's retarded over here. And like, what is this queenside? Oh god. I wonder what's the eval here. Yeah, it says black's better. That's funny. Basically equal, but slightly better. So let's say black, just out of curiosity, white does defend it. No, white does defend it. Okay, so you do break it down. And he doesn't even need to play a3, I feel like, because it doesn't do anything. So yeah, the move I thought was the best. And then we take and you take, oh, so this was the best line. Cool. So now we break it down with b6. He can't take because this comes with check. And if he tries to he can't even defend it again. Oh, so I guess maybe he can't even keep it, but either way, it doesn't even matter. There's so many openings where they do this and try to keep the pawn, and even if they're up the pawn, you end up having good play in the center, and you know, you have plenty of winning chances. So I was thinking of going e5 here instead of e6, but then I thought in my head, if he does play b4 and I don't win back the pawn, I am creating kind of weaknesses, and since I wasn't sure if the lines lead to me winning the pawn or not, I'm like, let me just go e6, as that doesn't create this giant hole on d5. And so this made more sense to me. So now you can see why I chose it. And then, let me turn this thing off. Okay, we just recapture free stuff. And then development and center. Development and center. King safety and development. And now, normally, you don't always take knights on the rim like this and just try to double pawns, because a lot of times giving up the bishop, you know, you're giving up some advantage too. But in this specific case, we do it because we see the follow-up move, queen a5, which looks very strong. So that's why we do it. Oops. And then we take free stuff, and it's already completely winning for black with a minus 2.4. And now we improve a piece for free. And now forced move for free. Free stuff. And then just developing, right? We haven't moved this, we haven't moved our rook. And then we needed to do something. It was a forced move because our knight was hanging. If we're going to spend our turn taking the knight, We might as well spend our turn doing something that's good for us, so we improve it. And then it's minus 5.3 after F5, creating this power outpost, supporting the center. And then free stuff. And then queen trade because it's just the simplest way to not have to think in the game and guarantee the victory. So force move, and now development. Force move because under attack, and we happen to get stuff, free stuff, improving a piece, simplifying into a winning endgame, free stuff, and then we queen. Don't get fancy, just get a queen, get 2 queens, do the ladder checkmate. Simplest way to victory, works every time. Hopefully this helps. Good luck in your chess. Stay tuned for the future episodes. Goodbye.